Hi, guys. Welcome to Para Women Radio. I'm Amy. Tomorrow, James Ford is scheduled to be executed by the state of Florida. Tonight, we delve into his case to uncover the truth. Who were his victims and where will this execution take place? James took the lives of Kim and Greg Malnory in front of their 5-year-old daughter. Additionally, he is accused but not convicted of also taking the lives of his cousin and her infant child over racially motivated issues, making him an unofficial serial killer. I have exclusive interviews lined up with one of James Coles' family members and a lawyer from an organization fighting to save his life. Tonight, we will provide a brief overview, but tomorrow we will delve deeper into the details. So let's begin. The suspense is building and the stakes are high. I doubt they could even get any higher than this. I'm going to roll some credits while we wait for the rest of the crew to roll in. Shout out to our replay crew. Have you heard of this case before? I'm very curious because this case is very new to me.
Cavalier's drumming his old guitar again. Words rolling out into our fire. If heaven had wings, I would steal them and fly away with you for a while. Here in the essence of gratitude, your dreamy little smile on my lips. I miss my cue, but baby, I had you. Miss my cue, but I had you for that day. Here in the blue, I'm falling deep into you.
Here in the essence of gratitude, I am so happy to be back here with my power crew on this Wednesday night. So, this is the eve of James Ford's execution. He is slated to go on death row tomorrow in Florida. It will be the first execution of 2025 for Florida. And we are going to cover the case. We have some exciting coverage for you. We have spoken with James's some of James's family. We spoke to a lawyer that is part of the protest against this execution. We have some clips and other things from the surviving victim of this case, the 5-year-old daughter who's now an adult. And yeah, we're just going to go over it. We're going to go over it lightly today. Tomorrow we'll go more deep into the cousin's unaliving, but tonight we are going to go over the umbrella of this case, and it's horrific, you guys. So I just want you to know that it is a horrific one, and if you need to sit this one out, I understand. All right, let me get my screen together. Tonight, we're coming to you on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Hi, everyone. So if you guys could just possibly, give us a thumbs up or a heart or a star or whatever you do on whatever platform you're listening to us on, if you could just do that, help us out into the algorithm. Party out there, bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help my channel out. Really, really appreciate it. Okay. And tonight over in YouTube, we've got Brittany Noel moderating. She's the lady in blue. So please show her some love. Thank you for being here tonight, Brittany. We do have a moderator over on YouTube if you want to come over and chat with us. All right. So, James Ford. In talking to the cousin today, they called him Jimbo. So Jimbo Ford. a breakdown of the Schmurder conviction. And also on YouTube, they like to make us use different words. So if you hear me say something a little offbeat, it's because YouTube will dox me, or not dox me, will not push me out into the algorithm and get this story out there. So we try to dance around the words. Also, I will be showing you a lot of content tonight. Everything that isn't in my own personal interview will be linked down in the YouTube show notes. We do this for fair play use, and we also do it to cite our sources. So we also realize that sometimes people want to just watch the video without me talking over it. But yeah. All right. So here we go. Hi, Mama Bear. Hello, first timer. Welcome. It's good to see you. All right. Here is the man of the hour. And I have to tell you, I'm just going to say it up front. I am not a death row advocate, but I'm also not against it. So I'm just kind of in the middle. This man is a POS, in my opinion. Even in speaking to his family members, I just feel really bad for his victim's family, and I feel very bad for his own family having to deal with this, because the generational curses that he has put on his own family on top of his victim's family is just disgusting to me. So a breakdown of the murder conviction for James Ford.
Convicted of killing 2 people in Charlotte County more than 25 years ago is set to be executed on Thursday night. James Ford was found guilty of murdering a young couple at a sod farm in Port Charlotte in 1997. ABC 7's Jordan Litwiller joining us in the studio with the latest.
James Ford, who also goes by Jimbo, is set to become the 8th person in Florida to be executed since 2020. But how did we get here? It all starts with this document. This probable cause affidavit from April 17th of 1997 detailing 2 gruesome murders. Greg and Kim Malnory had gone fishing with Greg's coworker, James Ford, at the sod farm they worked at in Charlotte County. A coworker finding the bodies of the Malnorys the next day with gunshot wounds to their head, and DNA later revealing Kim had been sexually abused. A document listing the evidence tying Ford to the murders, saying Ford was seen with the victims in the area of the crime just prior to the killings. Ford was seen that evening in a distracted state with blood on his face, hands, and clothes. This, along with other more graphic details, leading to Ford's conviction in 1999. Even after the jury found him guilty, Ford continued to insist that he was innocent. This document from April 14th of 1999 detailing some of the conversations he had with his mother after he became a convicted felon. In it, investigators ask her if she has any information that Ford committed these murders while under the influence of extreme mental or emotional disturbance. She says, "No, I do not." The investigator follows up by saying, in fact, he's denied even doing them, correct? Her response, he has denied it to this day. After being found guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder, sexual battery with a firearm, and child abuse, the focus then turning to his punishment. This document showing the jury was almost unanimous in what they wanted to see. On April 23rd of 1999, 11 out of 12 jurors voting to recommend the death penalty be used on Ford. Now, nearly 26 years later, that recommendation set to be carried out on Thursday. Jordan Litwiller, ABC 7.
Okay, so 26 years later, it is finally being carried out. In interviewing the advocate that was for the Floridians for alternatives to the death penalty, she was a lawyer, and she said to me something that I thought was really, really interesting. She said, if anyone ever unalives me, do not seek the death penalty because of this reason. She said, the victims get forgotten. Who are we talking about today? The victims, or the James Ford, right? And who will be remembered? James Ford. But the victims are the people that need to be remembered. And the victims are Greg and Kim Malnory. And I would say their daughter as well is a victim. And James's family, I would say, is a victim as well. And speaking to his family member, the family member was a very nice gentleman. And the family is, some of them think that he did it. Some of them think that he didn't do it. I'm going to go into why they think that he didn't do it. It's very interesting why they don't think he did it. There was an incident that happened a few weeks prior to that, but I will play that bit of the interview and you'll be able to hear it. And tomorrow we're going to go even more in depth. We're going to be covering it because the execution is slated to take place tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern time in Florida. So we'll probably be going live about 4 o'clock tomorrow. We'll be doing the interviews, the full interviews, and researching the case, going over some rabbit holes that we were presented tonight about. Because wouldn't you think that, I'm asking you, so if you heard that this man unalived a man and a woman right in front of their daughter, and then, but before that, did his cousin and her daughter, would you not think serial? Like this is something serial? So are there more? Would you think, are there more? Well, yes, I thought that. And I'm sure you guys are thinking that too. Well, the cousin thought it too. And so, yes, there are more that he has been, the finger has been pointed at him. So we're just going to really deep dive him tomorrow. It's going to be a day of James Ford tomorrow. But we're also going to pull up a beautiful tribute for Greg and Kim and their daughter. And yeah, that's how we do it here. So let's get it on the road. And this is who we're going to be talking. If you guys could be sure to give this live a thumbs up and share it. Really help. Those are 2 free ways to help us out. Helps us go out into the algorithm and bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help us out. So let's read over the case. Oh, shoot. Hold on. I have to share my screen again. Somehow it stopped. Sharing. Hello, Cowboy RC. I haven't seen you in so long. Well, I mean, it's been 2 weeks, so that seems like a long time to me. Before that, it was even longer. Oh, happy birthday too. It's your birthday. I won't sing happy birthday to you because I cannot sing, but I like the na. You say it's your birthday. That kind of birthday song. I'm sending you that one. And Mama Bear. Oh my goodness, we've got some Aquarius people here. Happy birthday to you too, Mama Bear. Okay. Death row inmate James Dennis Ford's life shaped by alcohol, loss before couple's murder. So, warning: this story contains details of a disturbing crime. Florida's death row inmate James Dennis Ford was so overcome with grief after his father's death, his former wife says she would find him in the cemetery at night, lying on his dad's grave and crying. Described as severely mentally delayed in court records, Ford turned to alcohol at loss and eventually murder. Florida is set to execute Ford by lethal injection for the 1997 murders of 25-year-old Gregory and his 26-year-old wife, Kimberly Malnory. If the execution moves forward, which it is, Ford will be the first inmate executed in Florida this year and the 5th in the U.S. Ford's lawyers have argued in court filings that the death penalty should not be applied to him because of his developmental issues. Prosecutors say the case was particularly horrific and that Ford's execution will be justice served. As the execution approaches, USA Today is looking back at the crime, who Ford is, and who his victims were. What was James Ford convicted of? On April 6, 1997, court records say that Ford invited his coworker, Gregory Malnory, and Malnory's wife, Kimberly, on a fishing trip to the South Florida sod farm in Punta Gorda, a southwestern Florida city just north of Fort Myers. They brought along their 23-year-old daughter, Maranda. Why did I think she was 5 years old? I'm sorry. I think I said 5 years old. I thought she was 5. Police believe Ford first attacked Gregory, shooting him in the back of his head, though they didn't unalive him. Investigators believe Gregory staggered to the middle of a nearby field where Ford bludgeoned him and put a knife through his throat from ear to ear, court records say. Kimberly, who was injured during the initial attack, managed to save their daughter by strapping her in the back seat of the couple's truck. But court records say Ford returned, then raped and beat her before shooting her to death. About 18 hours later, an employee of the sod farm found the Malnory's bodies. Maranda survived, but the 23-year-old was dehydrated, full of insect bites, and covered in her mother's blood. Ford told police he went fishing and with the family, and that they were alive when he left them to go hunting, records show. Witnesses at the sod farm told police they had seen Ford with blood on his face, hands, and clothes, and had large scratches on his body. Prosecutors say DNA testing showed that Ford's semen was inside Kimberly Malnory and a number of other items connected to the crime scene, including his own gun. At trial, Ford's lawyers argued he was blackout drunk at the time of the crime and couldn't even commit the murders. Ford later said he disagreed with the trial argument because it could imply his guilt. Linda Griffin, Kimberly Malnory's mother, said during the trial that she had lost not only a daughter, but a friend, according to the news articles at the time. She was my life, my laughter, and my tears, she said. A jury convicted Ford of the unalivings. So here is a photo of Kim and Greg and their infant daughter, Mallory. It's very sad. It's very sad. And it's really hard to talk about. It's a new case that I'm covering, that I'm deep diving in, and I just feel like I'm getting to know them. And I just feel really, this is so 90s. This is so 90s, isn't it? Oh, I miss the 90s. Okay. A life changed by death and alcohol. Ford had no significant criminal record before the murders, and friends and family said he never showed signs of violence. Ford had a troubled childhood with an alcoholic father and a mother who left when he was 14, court records say. Rodney McRae, a close friend of the family, said that the last few years of his life, Ford's father was drinking just about around the clock, according to court records. Still, Ford was close to his dad. He dropped out of school because he preferred to spend the time with his dad at his job at a cemetery as a cemetery caretaker in I think it's Arcadia. How do you say that? Arcadia. Ford and his father shared a very close bond. Ford's first wife said, remarking that they were closer than any two people she had ever known in her entire life. And I know that in speaking to Jimbo, James' cousin, the cousin said that he had big arguments with his own dad because half of the family believed that James did it and half believed that somebody else in the family did it. And we're going to get into that. So you might be wondering, like, why is the family saying this? Because some of the family believes somebody else in the family did it. Ford and his which makes absolutely no sense, because it seems like if that were the case, then that would have been the what they said at trial, but it's not. So Ford was in his early 20s when his dad died at the age of 52. He was devastated that he had lost his best friend. Ford's defense attorney wrote in court records, there were times when Paige Ford, his first wife, would find him missing at night, and she would find him at the cemetery lying on his father's grave. This loss compounded Ford's decline. He had been drinking in his late teens and eventually worked his way up to 24 beers in a day, records say. What has Ford's family said about the crime? One of Ford's daughters said her father's crime had a major impact in her life, according to a 2012 article by the Edgewood Sun. People didn't want to have anything to do with me, Peggy Ford said. It's hard for me to get a job. It's hard for me to hold a job. It's hard for me to have a relationship. It's hard for me to have friendships. That's exactly what I said to the cousin. I said, he's put a generational curse on your family that's going to last for a while. And I'm really, really sorry for the families that this had to happen. Hello, Justice Junction. The case is James Ford. It is a Florida death row inmate that is being put to death tomorrow in Florida. And the state is doing it. I've interviewed some of the family. And I interviewed one of the lawyers, and I have spoken briefly just before I came on. I'm not going to talk a lot about the daughter because I hadn't planned on speaking a lot about the daughter, but she did contact me just before the daughter, the 23-month-old daughter did contact me, who witnessed her mother and had her mother's blood on her, contacted me just before I went live. I'm going to share more tomorrow about that. But yes, it's horrific. It's just horrific, you guys. It's really horrific. As a 15-year-old, when the murders happened, she was ridiculed and bullied by her classmates at Charlotte High. In the article, she said she was still trying to figure out why her father could have done what he did. There's something in my heart that tells me he's where he needs to be, Peggy Ford said. I feel very bad for the Malnory's family. I do too. I feel horrible for that family. I feel horrible for both the families. The interview, the cousin who I interviewed said that James always made him feel creepy. Like he had a creepy vibe to him. James Ford had a creepy vibe to him, and he never felt completely comfortable around him. And I just wondered, like, if the daughter got that vibe. Saying like your father is where he needs to be, that says something. Ford's lawyers say his mental age should stop his execution, which in doing the interview, I not once did his mental capacity come up. Ford's attorney, and in interviewing the lawyer too that is protesting, they're not asking for him to be released. They're just saying that they're against the death penalty. So nobody's stating he's innocent. Nobody is. Well, a few people are, but those people I think have passed away. There's a lot of family members in his family that have passed away. That I think the people that thought he was innocent have since passed away. So. Ford's attorney have most recently argued that his death sentence should be thrown out, pointing to a 2005 Supreme Court decision that prohibited executions for underage people. Although Ford was 36 at the time of the crime, his lawyers argue that Ford's developmental age was much younger, more like 14, according to a psychologist who evaluated Ford. Circuit Judge Lisa Porter struck down that appeal. The argument that the death penalty is unconstitutional as applied to persons with a mental and developmental age of less than 18 is a legal issue, not a factual issue for which the defendant has provided no supporting case law, she said. Ford has few options left for a reprieve, and he didn't get it. So, I did see we're going to go over into Facebook, into the groups that are pro this execution. And he just simply did not get it. So, I wanted to also take a look at, it's not just this family that we're going to, in a moment, we're going to take a look at Kim and Greg a little more in depth, but there is also a cousin in the family who went missing with her infant daughter. And they believe that the family, some of the family, a lot of the family believes that James did this to the cousin as well, for the fact that the cousin was dating a black man and she wanted to be with that man, and the baby was biracial. So it also has racial implications. And I'm going to tell you something, you guys, there's nothing more than I cannot stand a racist. Can't live with it. Can't. You'll never see me more fired up than when racism comes into the it's the most insane thing to not like somebody because of the color of somebody's skin. I don't get it. My background is BA Psych Soc with a heavy emphasis in African American women's studies. I traveled around the East Coast one summer, went to refugee centers, did some workshops at Howard University on grassroots organizations, women's studies, African American women's studies. So I know I can't. So, and if people know anything about me, if you know me in depth, you know, and it's so funny too, because a friend of mine said this the other day. She's like, yeah, I was talking to somebody and they were like, yeah, Amy, you can't around Amy because she'll say it. I'm someone who I feel like if I'm silent, if you say something in front of me and I remain silent, then you're going to think I agree with you. Silence to me is agreement. And so I will always speak up for these type of things. And so here we are with the cousin missing, and I wanted to provide a little information. This is from a YouTube channel, and I will put the link. It's Zafa Anchor, and he covers the entire case, and at the end, he talks more about the cousin.
Earlier, James Ford lived in a home in Arcadia, Florida. Also living in Arcadia, in a rundown area of the town, was Ford's 21-year-old cousin, Kelly Jo Crum, and her 8-month-old baby daughter, Kelsey. By August 11 of the year 1994, about 3 years before James Ford murdered Greg and Kim Malnory, Kelly Jo had packed her bags while planning to move away from that awful neighborhood to move in with her mom in Sebring, Florida. While Kelly Jo was in the process of packing, she was visited by her cousin, James Dennis Ford. And then suddenly, poof, both Kelly Jo and baby Kelsey vanished, never to be seen again. All her packed stuff still in her home. As the last known person to see Kelly Jo and baby Kelsey alive, law enforcement in Florida has always suspected James Ford of foul play in their disappearance, but he was never charged. After seeing what he was capable of following the murders of Greg and Kim Malnory 3 years later, those suspicions took on even greater significance. He has been interviewed, even though practically on his deathbed, in a sense. He continues to deny any involvement in his cousin's disappearance. In the meantime, Florida still has Kelly Jo and baby Kelsey listed as missing persons. After learning that James Ford will be executed in February, family and dear friends of Kelly Jo and baby Kelsey have recently posted comments on social media of how they hope and pray that James Ford does the right thing and disclose.
And he hasn't done the right thing. And in speaking with the family is wishing that he wouldn't be put to death because they want to find out what happened to their family members. They feel like if he wasn't put to death, that, you know, maybe they would get to know what happened to Kelly and Kelsey, which I can understand. So who were Greg and Kimberly? Well, on April 6, 1997, 27-year-old Greg Malnory, he was born on July 18, 1971, and his 26-year-old wife, Kimberly Kim, were unalived. And oh, it looks like Kimberly's birthday was November 9th. Oh my gosh, we're almost twin Scorpios. Were murdered by James Dennis Ford. Born was born July 23rd, 1960 at South Florida Sod Farm in Charlotte County, Florida. It was a double unaliving. Here is a photo of them, their gravesite. This is Kimberly and Gregory's gravesite. This is Miranda, their daughter, who is the infant here. With everything going on these days, these two have been on my mind a lot lately, she says. I make you proud every day, and I keep a picture of the three of us on my desk. I remind myself every day that I do it for you both. The last month have been the hardest. No one ever prepares you for it. We will get closure. Please be patient with me. I promise I'm not ignoring anyone. I'm literally trying to survive. Miranda, if you ever see this, we are sending you all the love and support that we possibly can. You are a survivor, just like an amazing, amazing survivor. And if you ever want to tell your parents' story to us, we would be very happy to hear it. And so let's keep going. Sorry, guys. I was talking to the cousin quite a bit today, and I am trying to move forward and minimize our chats before I hit the page. Okay. Okay, there we go. So, and this is the cousins page that is missing that people are searching for. This is Justice for Kelly and Kelsey Crum. This is the cousin, and this is the little girl that went missing. It looks like here we can see the application for a stay of execution was filed on February 8th, and then on February 12th, it was presented, and it was denied. But like I said, the family is wishing that they knew what happened to their family member, Kelsey. It's really hard on them. I can only imagine. I can only imagine how hard this is on all of the families. I talk about generational curses, but the generational curse that James put on poor Miranda, her family. Oh, all right. So let's keep going, you guys. I'm sorry. Let's go into the interview that I have with the cousin, and then we'll go into the interview that I did the protest. Okay? I guess I need to find it first. I thought it was up here. Sorry, that's the wrong one. And I'm going to hide it behind, so I need to get my screen situated and put an overlay up here so that you guys don't see the stuff behind it. So I am going to pop up a quick overlay. And yeah. So how's everyone doing today? February is flying by, don't you think? I can't believe we're almost through February. I couldn't believe we were through January when it happened. Okay. That's the wrong one again. Oh, I'm in the wrong one. I'm sorry, you guys. Okay. Also, the bird was awake during this interview. I did put him in the other room, but you can hear him a little bit. So I know some of you don't like my bird as much. When I start playing it, I'm going to stop it. Could you just let me know if you can hear it, the mod or anybody in chat? I want to make sure that you can hear it because this is the first time I threw an overlay over something. The cousin asked not to be identified, and so I'm trying to be respectful of that. Okay, can you guys hear that? What I just played? Were you able to hear that? Okay. Brittany, were you able to hear it? Were you able to hear what I just put over there? Keep asking it. If someone could just type and let me know really quick if you can hear it. Anybody? Mueller? Anybody? Oh, help a girl out. All right, nobody's replying. Okay, guys, so I'm not really sure if you can hear it, so I'm just going to play it, and I'll keep an eye on chat to make sure. If you can't hear it, just let me know. Okay, guys? Thanks. No, you can't hear it? Okay. All right, let me do plan B. We'll do plan B. He's got a plan. We're going to download it. And then as it's downloading, we'll just move on and we're going to take a look at the prison and then we'll do the interviews at the end of the live. And as I always do, I will edit this live and create it into a nice little cohesive video for you. And we'll do it that way. Hold on one second, you guys. Okay. All right. So let's talk about where James is going to be executed. There were efforts to halt the execution, of course, but it went to the Supreme Court and it was denied. So I was wondering, we did take a look at death row when we were looking at Sarah Boone, even though Sarah Boone isn't on death row. She is housed at the institution where death row is at. So here are some general facts on death row, the Supreme Court and death row, the case. In January 2000, oh, this isn't the right one either. Oh, sorry, guys. Here's the history of the death penalty. Prior to 1923, executions in Florida were carried out by the county rather than the state. Florida changed execution methods from hanging to electrocution when it placed electrocutions under state control. Here's the timeline. We're just going to breeze through it. Started at 1827, first known execution in Florida. Benjamin Donica hung for murder. And here's some that comes up. Florida is really a hot box for execution right now. They're trying to get rid of it. I know a lot of states are trying to get rid of this In 2002, they did Eileen Wuornos seems to me to be the one that I remember the most in Florida. Who is the person that you remember the most that was put to death in Florida? Trying to think of other people, but so in 2023, Governor Ron DeSantis signed legislation allowing the death penalty to be sought in actual battery cases against a minor under the age of 12. Some of the famous cases: Eileen Wuornos, notable executions. Florida has had 30 exonerations from death row, more than any other state. You can read about all of Florida's exonerations. And in fact, the person that I interviewed today, from the Floridians for Alternative to the Death Penalty, said that the person who runs that was actually the lead board member, was somebody who was actually on death row at one point. Yes, Ted Bundy. That's another one. Ralford, yes. So the first exoneration in the United States after Furman versus Georgia was David Keaton on the basis of mistaken identification and coerced confessions. Keaton was sentenced to death for murdering an off-duty deputy sheriff during a robbery. The state Supreme Court revised the conviction and granted Keaton a new trial because of newly discovered evidence. Charges were dropped and he was released after his actual killer was identified and convicted. In fact, I think that's who is on the board now. That I'll have to re-listen. We're not going to listen to the whole interview tonight. We're going to listen to the whole one tomorrow, but I might be in a part that we're listening to tonight. I don't know. Notable communications. Governor Bob Graham granted 6 clemencies during his term as governor. No other Florida governor since 1976 has granted clemency to death row inmates. Lurie, Leo Alford, and Jesse Rutledge received clemency from Graham due to their possible innocence. Milestones in abolition reinstatement. Florida was the first state to reintroduce the death penalty after Furman versus Georgia struck down all existing death penalty laws. Other interesting facts: the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled Florida's death penalty practices unconstitutional numerous times. That's the big thing about the Florida death row, that people say it's very costly, unpredictable, and lots of corruption in the legal system, and death is final. Death is death. You don't get a reprieve from death. So that is the argument for the capital punishment in Florida. How do you guys feel about the death penalty? Like I said, I'm not for it, but I guess I'm not really against it either. I'm not tore up about this guy being put to death. But when we do go into the interview, there is some stickiness where with the DNA and in the 90s, and it appears that the cousin, there might be the DNA that was gathered. It could be a cousin or a relative. We're going to hear the story in just a moment. So this is where the execution is taking place tomorrow. This is what a death penalty cell looks like. Florida's death penalty law and the fate of the state's nearly 400 death row inmates remains in flux. When they were trying to fight it, this was another one where they were trying to fight it. Do you think they're ever going to get rid of the death penalty in Florida? I can't see it ever happening. Can you? I really cannot see Florida removing the death penalty from them. I think that Florida is one of those states, much like Texas, that I just can't ever see it going away. But maybe one day, maybe probably not in the next 4 years for sure. But yeah. Okay. All right. So I have the interview ready for you. This is a cousin. He does explain how he's related. Yeah, I have troubles with it too, only because so many mistakes happen. Oh, you worked in execution, Cowboy RC. I'm going to get you back on the channel and talk to you. Cowboy RC is an ex-sergeant from a prison in Wisconsin. A retired sergeant from Wisconsin. Okay, here we go. This is the interview that I have set for you.
Is, I'm one of only 2 people who were alive that day, seeing what happened that day, and anybody who says that, Jimbo didn't do that, that rumor or that feeling comes from what happened on this particular day.
Okay. So we just have a little background first. You are his cousin, correct?
Correct. I'm a blood Ford. My grandmother was Mary Jane Ford, who was one of 17 children to Annie Ford. So I'm actually a blood Ford.
Okay.
And so he would be, I think, my second cousin, I believe. I'd have to go back to the lineage, but I believe he's second cousin.
Okay. And what is the
third
age difference?
What's that?
What is the age difference between you two?
I'm 49, so there's about 20 years, I guess.
Okay, perfect.
I was a kid, when I knew him and stuff, like, for the most part. But when all this stuff happened, I was 21 years old. I was an adult.
Okay, so you have a good knowledge of this. So there's a story that you think that, because I am slated to interview the protesters today, and I just want to know, why would anyone defend this man? And you have said that there is a reason that perhaps you think maybe they would, and there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And like I said, anything that anybody who has that feeling that he didn't do this is going to stem from what's been said from what I'm about to tell you happened that day.
Okay.
So, just a little bit of background. Jerry Ford, Ray Ford, and my daddy and Ray Ford were enforcers for the drug cartels from my grandfather on my mother's side, which that's why I sent you that screenshot to show you the reality of that.
Okay.
And that's how he met my mother, of course, and had me, okay, for the most part. Now, so Ray and my daddy weren't people to be messed up with. So at my grandmother's funeral, basically you have R.L. Griffin, Mark Griffin, and Remus Griffin. They're all brothers. R.L. actually owned the property that the Malnorys were murdered on. So at my grandma's funeral, everybody was there in my Aunt Kathy's front yard after the funeral, like for the, eating and drinking and stuff like that and what have you. Mark Griffin stole a gun out of Ray Ford's truck right there in my Aunt Kathy's front yard. Jimbo seen it happen and told on him. And they honestly were going to kill Mark Griffin that day because of that gun. Ray Ford, Jerry Ford, my daddy.
Do you know why he stole the gun?
As far as what?
Well, I mean, what was the reason of stealing the gun? He just stole it to steal it?
Mark Griffin was just a thief, he was always in jail for cattle rustling. Yeah, he was just a thief,
And
There's just no
James, right? Jimbo is James, who we're talking about.
Correct, yeah, James Ford, yeah.
Okay.
James seen it happen and told on him. And Ray Ford, my daddy, and Jerry Ford, which, Ray Ford and Jerry Ford are brothers, they gave Mark Griffin a timeline to return that gun, or they were going to kill him. And I heard them plotting on how they were going to do it. And like I said, Ray Ford, my daddy, were enforcers for the cartel. They didn't play around. If they were talking about it, it was going to happen. I overheard it. And Mark gave the gun back, of course. And he vowed that day, though, that he was going to get Jimbo back for that. And then, of course, a few months later, the Malnory incident happens. And that's why everybody kind of thinks, some people think that's where everybody gets the idea that Jimbo may not have done that because, Mark, vowed that he was going to get him back for that. And it happened on Mark's brother's property as well. So who was also R.L. Griffin, was also involved in the drug running game as well. So, there's a lot of stuff that people don't know. I'm telling you information that, to be honest with you, I shouldn't be telling you, but I ask you just keep me anonymous on it, I guess.
Okay.
And so that's why anybody who has that inclination of that Jimbo did, that's where it stems from, is incident. And I debated my daddy with this a bunch of times and stuff like that, because his dying day he said that Jimbo didn't do that. And I was like, what about the DNA evidence and stuff like that, and what have you? And I guess in the mid-90s, about the DNA testing wasn't down to an exact science. And I guess if you and I were related and I committed a crime, DNA, and they ran your DNA, it would have popped up as, possibly being you also.
Is he related to Mark?
Yes, yeah, they're blood relation.
So they're thinking Mark did it. Wow.
Yeah, that's where that whole thing,
isn't it?
From.
Wow. And this is all alleged. This is all for educational purposes only. We urge you to go out and do your research. So again, this is an incident that witnessed happening at the funeral.
Yeah. Mark and Mark was grandson to my grandmother's sister, basically. Clyde Griffin.
Does Jimbo say Mark did it? Or I guess he doesn't know, but he says he didn't do it, right?
Correct. Yes. I've never talked to Jimbo or anything, because I have no idea.
Oh, you've never talked to Jimbo since this has happened. So
been in jail or prison ever since then.
So is there anybody in the family that does talk to him still?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
I'm not trying to talk to any of those people. I'm just wondering.
Yeah. I don't know, to be honest with you. I think pretty much like I said, I'm only one of two people alive that actually knows what happened in that front yard that day in my Aunt Kathy's house. Everybody else has died. Ray, Jerry, Ford, RL. I think RL's still alive, but Remus and Mark, are dead. Mark actually took his own. So
Mark take his life?
It's been a few years back, about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. He killed his best friend and then killed himself.
Oh boy.
So yeah,
I'm gonna have to look him up too. So I'm covering this case today and tomorrow. Luckily, today I'm just laying out the basics, and tomorrow I'm going more in depth. Could you tell me what does the family feel about the cousin and the baby missing? How do you feel about that?
Everybody pretty much feels, that because of the Malnory situation that, he was involved in, but basically he was the last one to be seen with her alive. And the Malnorys were the last ones to be seen with him alive as well. So everyone's, pretty much my opinion on it is I just, I look at the evidence, and I try to stay unopinionated about it because, I'm, because of the girl, the survivor, and, the family. So I try to stay unopinionated about it. I just say, justice has its wheels, I guess. So I honestly could not tell you, but I know that I've talked to a few people about, that situation with Jimbo and Kelly and Kelsey. And Jimbo was digging graves and septic tanks back then when that happened. And someone said they seen him coming out of his mother's property out on North 17, hometown, North Highway 17, where he was digging a septic tank for his mother's house. And he came out of there early in the morning, the next morning after, Kelly and Kelsey went missing. and he wouldn't have went far with them. He would have went places where he would, would have known to be at if, he was involved in that.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always felt they're either under a septic tank or they're under a grave somewhere.
Have they done any searches for them?
I've contacted, people from the sheriff's department, like in DeSoto County. I used to work there. I contacted one of the deputies, and stuff like that. Detectives, that I know there. In all honesty, I think they've pretty much lost interest, in the case because it's just so old, and everybody pretty much knows. Okay, they're dead. He's serving he's getting a death sentence, so basically he's going to get his punishment, I guess, for vicariously, I guess, if he did or if he didn't do it. I guess what it boils down to is kind of a feeling that I get from law enforcement. In other words, they're not going to open that back up, and go digging stuff up, and that kind of shit, basically.
Case solved, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what
I'm sorry.
kind of comes down to. Yeah, so I kind of wish they would offer him, a stay of execution, and for me, because Kelly was, close to me. Her and I was kind of the nerdy, unpopular kid in school, and she was kind of popular, and she was always in school and stuff like that, and so that, Kelly kind of, hit me pretty hard, because I was actually pretty close to her,
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I really want to know. I really want to know what happened to her, and where, and get closure on that. I guess personally myself, and
what does he say? He just says he doesn't know.
I've never spoke to him, on that. To be honest with you,
anyone in the family asked him?
He says he didn't. He said it had nothing to do with it, but I'd have to totally, verify it. But as far as I know, he did take a polygraph test on Kelly. They polygraphed him on that because he was the last one who was seen with them, and he failed the polygraph. But of course, the polygraph wasn't admissible, in court. It's not admissible in court as evidence. You have to have hard evidence, to be and use a lie detector test as a backup, basically. So he was never charged with that or anything. But so. Yeah, I don't know. My personal opinion is that, he did both of them.
Yeah.
That's my. But my daddy went to the grave, saying he didn't do it, and so I don't know. But anything that anybody who's believing that he didn't do it is going to come from that story that happened in my Aunt Kathy's front yard that day, because Mark Griffin did vow that he was going to get Jimbo back for that.
Okay. Well, is it possible that okay. So, and talking to him, we messaged a bit more, and I have more messages to share with you tomorrow. I just need to get it all put together. He did talk about how it would have been something so elaborate that Mark would have had to put together. And he didn't really believe that Mark was that smart to put all of that together. I did do a quick search on this Mark person and came up with a obituary on Mark, and I will have some more information about Mark tomorrow, but this is the guy that we are talking about. Hold on, I've got to share my screen again. Somehow it stopped sharing. Something's going on with StreamYard tonight. This is Mark Eugene Griffin, the man who some of the family members believe is the culprit. I personally think it's the guy that's in prison that's going to be put to death tomorrow. But there is that too. So let's keep going. I want to show you the part of the interview that I did with the lawyer. I screwed up during this interview, and my mic came unplugged. So you can't hear me, but you can hear her. I've got a few clips that I'm going to play tonight on.
It's just like there's so many other ways.
This was her talking about. I wanted to know why would someone fight for for his life? Why are you fighting for his life? I said to her. She was really kind of back by that. She was like, "Well, it's my organization. It's what we do." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, but why? Why? What personally makes you fight for people on death row?"
Quite frankly, part of the reason that I am sort of personally opposed to the death penalty, having done this work for so long, is whenever there's a death penalty case, the law requires it to be about the person you're executing and not about the victim of the crime, because the law says you can only kill the most aggravated and least mitigated, right? And so that's what the law says. You're not allowed to there's no automatic death penalty. Well, the Florida legislature sometimes thinks there is, but there's not under the law. And so if there's, when you've got these cases, that are often horrific and horrible and super sad and devastating, then the victims get lost, because if there's a death penalty, you have to tell the story of the person. If there's no death penalty, they get life without parole and everybody forgets about them and they spend their life in Florida prison. And I mean, that is why, some sort of from a personal standpoint, I always, tell all of my friends. And when I was a prosecutor, I said this too. I was like, if anybody ever kills me, like, don't seek the death penalty, because I want the story to be about me and my legacy and what it would have been, right? Not the person who took my life. I've been following.
Here I start talking about.
Yeah, I know. I've been following her as well. My heart goes out to her very, very much. I can't imagine the sort of life that she had to endure, but I also can't help but think, I think I saw her post something like she just wants it to be over, and I get that. It could have been over 30 years ago if they didn't seek the death penalty. It would have been, right? There would have been nothing. He would have had, if you don't get a death sentence, you get one round of appeals and that's it. You're not entitled to a lawyer. That's it. You're forgotten in the prison system.
So that was her stance on why she is fighting for this guy's life. And then I went on to ask, like, what are the details? Because tomorrow's the execution, and they have a protest that they have planned. And I had found this online in doing my research, and this is how I got her contact information. This organization had planned this vigil for Jimbo, and I asked, like, what is the plan? So here is what she told me the plan is for tomorrow on his execution.
For Floridians for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. So we participate in the vigil, but the folks that come from the church in Daytona, they're just a group that they have sort of their own. They come whether they're there, whether we're there or not, so to speak. So we don't. It's like it's a vigil, and we're like one of the partners in the vigil. I believe, and I've never done it with them, but I believe that they meet at their church and they take the bus and they come to Florida State Prison. That's my understanding, but I don't know the answer to that. There's a set up place across the street from Florida State Prison. There's a place for supporters and protest. It's kind of like when you come up, like on the left side, it's people opposing the execution, and on the right side, it's people supporting the execution. I've never seen more than one person in the support side. Nobody shows up for that, but there's usually people that show up plenty of people who show up on the opposing side. But there's a field across the way, and it's near the media, so there's a media tent as well. It's on the same side of the street as the media. It's kind of across the field. So the media can come and often do sort of walk over to where our vigil is, and then, if there's any supporters.
So that is what is going to happen tomorrow. It is happening at 6 p.m. Eastern time. He will be put to death. I will play more of the interviews tomorrow for you. I asked her how he will be put to death and stuff like that. There's a little bit more of the interview with the cousin. I will have more of the text. I need to edit out his name and things like that, so I can't show those tonight. But yeah, the cousin and I have continued to talk after the interview. They believe he's been accused of another murder. The finger was pointed at him for another one in the 80s. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to go more in depth into who the cousin was, things like that. So if this case interests you, this is James Ford. He will be put to death tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern time in Florida. His victims are Greg and Kim Malnory, and the daughter who survived is named Maranda. And yeah, that's the case that we're going to be covering for the next few days. What do you guys think? It's horrific. The details we haven't gone too much into. We'll go into them a little bit more, trying to remain as respectful as possible. But yeah, the attack began in front of the daughter. The mother grabbed the daughter and ran to the vehicle. He did what he did to the father. Then he caught up with the mother. He silently attacked the mother of the daughter. The daughter had her mother's blood on her. He left the daughter strapped into the car seat for days. That she was dehydrated. The car was found in the middle of the field. 2 days later, roughly 2 days later, she was dehydrated and clinging to life, and he has been sentenced to death for that incident. What do you guys think? Are you for the death penalty? Are you against the death penalty? Are you kind of like, well, if it happens, it happens? How are you feeling about this? I want to know. Put your answer down in the comments for me. Maybe I'll share it a little bit tomorrow. And yeah, so that is all I have for tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for tuning in. We have had so many new subscribers over on YouTube recently, over 600 new subscribers. We hit the 6K mark. We hit the 1K mark over on TikTok. And yeah, so just please be sure to subscribe to us. And have you heard of our Dragonfly program that we have over on YouTube? It's a little way that I can give you some added content, and it's a way that you can support me a little bit more. Oh, here, let me just show you. And if you're not subscribed, why are you not subscribed? I would really, really, really love to have you as a power subscriber. If you really like my content, be sure to become a Dragonfly, and that's our membership, and it's $2.99 a month. I release all my videos early. We have special emojis over in the chat room. I kind of share things ahead of time with my Dragonflies, and I go live sometimes just for the Dragonflies. It's a way that I can support you guys and give you more content, and it's a way for you to support our channel. It's $2.99 a month, and I would love to have you. Okay, guys. So have a good night. I'll see you guys tomorrow with a special edition of Parawoman Radio. If nobody's told you this today, and even if they have, I'm still going to tell you this. I love you guys so, so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys. Thank you, Brittany, for being the best mod, and it was so good to see you, Cowboy RC. Welcome. I know we had a new person, Mama, something, Mama. Welcome, Mama. Mama, that's it, Mama Bear. Hi, Justice Junction. And I'll see everyone tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Carefully strumming this old guitar, words rolling out into the fire. Never ask why my heart burned blue. Here in the haze where you inspire me. Here in the darkness I hear my cue. Time to find some solitude. here where my soul bleeds openly, deep in the heart of sin and you. Here in the blue, I'm falling deep into you.